Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation. I am proud to report to you that today, actually last Friday, was the day. We are going to continue a very methodical and committed approach to ensure that if any other person had any involvement in these murders in any way, that person or persons will be held accountable.
And we are talking about the Delphi murder case on the docket tonight. Libby and Abby, those 2 young girls, best friends, brutally murdered in the woods. That man, Richard Allen, was finally arrested after years that this case was being investigated. But there's another man that is seemingly somehow connected to this case. His name is Kegan Kline. And he had this profile on the internet where he pretended to be a male model. He's not a male model. What he is a collector of child pornography. There he is, clearly not a model. Looks nothing like the profile picture. But through that profile, the morning of the murders, he was communicating with the girls. He hasn't been charged in the murder case, but he recently pleaded guilty to a whole bunch of child pornography charges and was in court pleading guilty. There were no cameras permitted, but Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee from the Murder Sheet podcast, have been on the show a bunch of times, talked to us because they were in court that day at this plea. Take a listen.
Today, Kegan Kline essentially pled guilty to all 25 charges against him surrounding the child sexual abuse materials, stealing another person's identity on the internet, and obstructing justice.
The prosecutor in charge of the case made it crystal clear that there was no deal. She took charge of the case in January, and she said the day after I took charge of the case, I went to Kegan Kline's defense attorney and said, there is no deal available to you in this case. There is no deal on the table, and there is no deal that is going to be offered. Either go to trial or plead guilty. And as we know now, Kegan ultimately decided to plead guilty.
At this point, the only thing truly linking them is the fact that he's copping to being the person behind the Anthony Shots account. And in the transcripts that we released last year, it indicated that police believed that Anthony Shots was in touch with Libby before her murders. So that's sort of the link. And I think a lot of people were hoping that a trial could maybe illuminate that some more or say, okay, is this a real connection or can we rule this out? But now that there's no trial, it sort of seems like we'll be kind of left guessing to a certain extent.
So what's really going on here? Let's bring back in our think tank, Josh Schiffer, Molly Palmer, and Daryl Cohen with us.
I'm angry because that's a prosecutor failing to do their job.
What do you mean?
You make offers to get things. That goes all ways in this business of ours. If the state wanted to know what happened with that account, they should have made him an offer where he would have provided that information rather than ensuring we're never going to find out what happened and providing a defense to this gentleman who is now being held on suspicion of murder of these 2 girls. That is the ultimate failure of the state to obtain information using the leverage that they have by going, we're not even going to deal with you. Mm-hmm. They literally betrayed those 2 victims and the entire community, and it's shameful.
I think that there was a deal. I think the deal was we will not prosecute you for the murder as being part of it if you plead guilty to all 25 of these counts. So there's no deal, but there is a deal. I think talking out.
Does that happen?
Oh, never. Well, at least once.
Well, I mean, what we often see, I mean, look, cooperation, snitching makes the whole system go round. And what we often see
is that
it's
not snitching that has a negative connotation. It's telling the truth about what happened.
No, I call it cooperation, but look, half the time it's snitching. But,
it's remembering the truth.
It's incentivizing, being incentivized by the government to, like, put the blame on somebody else when you yourself did it just as much. But I think what we often see is a contract. It's in the plea agreement. It's something you negotiate for before you go in front of the judge and you enter your guilty plea. To not have that laid out in a legal contract, in a plea deal, that does leave open if, I mean, he doesn't have to do anything for the government in terms of the murder.
He's pleading guilty, and there's a sentencing coming up that's all going to take place before the trial of the man accused in the Delphi murders.
Right.
I think he pled guilty so he would not be prosecuted as part of those 2 murders.
So what does this do to the trial of Richard Allen now? How does this man, his so-called connection to this profile, what happens now at the trial of the man they believe is responsible for this double murder?
There's a giant empty 3rd chair sitting at the defendant's table. And the defendant's gonna point at it endlessly about how, hey, the person that had known contact with these girls and who is a convict who pled guilty to a bunch of child-related horrific stuff, he's conveniently not here, jury. We're not going to talk about it very much. And we go back to the idea that trial is an exercise in hiding things from juries. And that's precisely the defense that could be very persuasive.
We shall see. Take a look, folks. The Delphi murders, the sentencing of Kegan Kline coming up on May 18th of this year. Richard Allen having a pretrial hearing on June 15th of this year. And obviously, we will stay on top of both of them.